Ah, oxygen. It's the invisible, weightless force keeping us alive, every single second of every single day. But what if this life-giving air suddenly turned Earth into a terrifying, unlivable terrarium? Welcome to this visual explainer. Today, we're looking at a wild, completely mind-bending scenario based on some really fascinating biological and environmental science. We're going to explore exactly what would happen to our bodies, our cities, and the entire food chain if the very air we breathe got a massive upgrade. Or, well, a downgrade, depending on how you look at it. Okay, let's dive into this. The big question. What if Earth's oxygen suddenly doubled? Right now, our atmosphere is perfectly balanced at about 21% oxygen. But what if, literally in the blink of an eye, that shot up to over 40%? I mean, it sounds like a breath of fresh air, right? Well, not exactly. It actually sets off this crazy paradox where the very thing that sustains life starts to rapidly destroy it. Let's break down this shocking transformation, phase by phase. So, phase 1, deep breath and the initial shock. Imagine walking down the street when the atmospheric composition instantly shifts. The air would physically feel thicker, richer. The sky might even look a little different, maybe scattering light way more intensely. But the real change, that is happening deep inside your lungs and bloodstream in a matter of milliseconds. We're calling this the 200% biological upgrade. The visual shock of the atmosphere changing is one thing, for sure, but the instant physical shift inside the human body is just staggering. Your lungs are suddenly taking in twice the amount of oxygen with every single breath. Your heart pumps this completely hyper-oxygenated blood straight to your brain, your muscles, your organs. The immediate aftermath? A biological system pushed into absolute overdrive. And this brings us right to a massive, sudden surge in body energy. We're talking about an extreme physiological reaction here. The mitochondria in your cells, the microscopic powerhouses that basically drive your biology, they're suddenly flooded with an endless supply of raw fuel. Just look at our current reality on the left. Normal energy, that standard afternoon fatigue you feel after a long day, are normal physical limits, completely gone. Instead, you enter the 2x oxygen reality on the right, superhuman stamina and practically boundless energy. That shortness of breath you get after running up a flight of stairs? Totally erased. In those first few hours, you would feel literally unstoppable. You could sprint for miles without breaking a sweat. Your cognitive functions would be razor sharp, your focus absolute. You'd basically feel like a superhero. But as you'll see, this superhuman high comes with a catastrophic planetary cost. Now, what's really interesting about this next part is how our superhero fantasy quickly turns into an absolute nightmare. Phase 2, deadly uncontrollable wildfires. The chain reaction is pretty simple, really. More oxygen equals unstoppable fire. Basic physics tells us that fire needs 3 things to exist: heat, fuel, and oxygen. So when you double the oxygen supply, you are essentially dousing the entire planet in invisible gasoline. The physical breakdown of our environment begins almost immediately because fire now feeds aggressively, violently, and totally unpredictably on the thickened air. Normal, everyday activities are now deadly fire hazards. Lighting a gas stove to cook dinner, that could cause a massive explosive flare-up that just takes out your whole kitchen. Starting your car engine, the internal combustion could literally shatter the engine block and ignite the surrounding air. Dropping a match, or get this, even just the tiny spark of static electricity from taking off a sweater in winter, it could trigger a raging inferno. Our modern world, which is totally built on combustion and electricity, would literally burn itself to the ground. But if you somehow manage to survive the flames, well, nature has another horror waiting for you. Which brings us to phase 3, the emergence of giant insects. So the crucial point here is that we are now entering the long-term catastrophe. If the unstoppable fires don't get you, the ultimate evolutionary nightmare just might. Over months and years, this high-oxygen environment would drastically rewrite the animal kingdom, particularly the bugs. And this is all because of the concept of biological scaling in insects. You see, unlike humans, insects do not have lungs. They breathe through tiny tubes called trachea, which absorb oxygen directly from the air into their bodies. In our current world, the physical size of these tubes and the oxygen concentration in the air strictly limits how big a bug can actually get. But in a 2x oxygen environment, that limitation completely vanishes. The massive influx of oxygen fuels absolutely massive physical growth. We are talking about terrifying evolutionary leaps here. And this brilliantly illustrates the scale of the problem. 200%. A 200% growth factor means insects would reclaim their prehistoric sizes, much like they did millions of years ago when Earth's oxygen levels were naturally way higher. Imagine spiders the size of small cars and mosquitoes the size of birds. I mean, no way, right? Our cities, which are already scorched by those unpredictable fires, would now be overrun by colossal, heavily armored insects that have rapidly adapted to absolutely thrive in this hyper-oxygenated world. So, this leads us to our new reality and conclusion. So what does the world look like in the long run? Frankly, it's an unrecognizable, hostile landscape. The human body might adapt to feel superhuman in the short term, sure, but we'd be living in a constant, exhausting state of survival. Between the hyper-flammable atmosphere making modern technology impossible to use and literal apex predator insects roaming the ash-covered Earth, humanity would be pushed to the absolute brink. So I leave you with this final thought. Would you trade a world of giant bugs and relentless fire just to feel like a superhero for a day? It really makes you appreciate the delicate, perfect 21% balance of oxygen we have right now, doesn't it? If you found this dive into the science of a doubled oxygen Earth as fascinating as I did, definitely hit that like button, subscribe for more visual explainers, and let me know down in the comments, how long do you honestly think you'd survive in this crazy scenario? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep asking the big questions.